Hi, it's Jerry Bjork here. I'm walking around the shop, just sort of giving you an idea of what we have in here. We do some woodworking. I used to share the shop with my pattern, or my partner, who is a wood pattern maker. God rest his soul. I lost him 9 years ago, and this was his area, and I miss him every day. Some of my projects, I had a large marine engine, 1927 Hicks Marine 3 cylinder. I used to show it at shows and let it run, and the engine was quite large. It was 3 cylinder, 597 cubic inches, had a 6-inch bore, 7-inch stroke, and you can see a picture here. You can see I'm standing there, and it's tall. The flywheel alone is 500 pounds. Uh, the interesting thing about this engine is has a roller cam, which we will get into. It has overhead valves, which is no big deal, but it's variable cam timing is how you control the throttle. It's 1927. About 8 or 10 years ago, BMW claimed they came up with it. Well, surprise, surprise. This engine put out 27 horse at 500 RPM, and it pushed a 44-foot Monterey fishing boat 9 knots. You're looking at my brother and I are making a quarter scale model of it. We're currently working on the head. That's a 3D printed head, just to prove out some of the dimensions before we do any castings, or maybe do a 3D head that's in aluminum, and you can have all the passages on the inside, and you don't have to make any cores for casting. Over here is the Kawasaki. Originally it was a triple 3-cylinder 2-stroke. This one was an engine built by Alan Millyard in England. It was built over 20 years ago. If you see that there are 4 cylinders, we're completely going through the engine. We're doing the crank. It had some issues, and we're sorting that out. So now it's 1,000 cc. Since this one has been built, he's actually made a 5-cylinder, and it's a 1250. There's only 1 or 2 of these particular bikes in the world. Under the cover, we'll get into some stuff. There are a couple bikes. There's the Cafe Racer on the far end. There's a little Hodaka 50 Vantec, which is rare because I've only seen one other 50cc Hodaka in this country. Under here is a Norton Commando 1970, which belongs to one of our guys, Daniel Schoenwald. He's out in Camarillo. He has a collection of over 177 motorcycles. What we're looking at here is the TZ250, and we had to go completely through this engine. We're just assembling it now. It has special Hans Hammel barrels on it. The owner bought those barrels from Hans Hammel, and he's from Switzerland. And these cylinders are the last 2 he ever sold. My friend Bernie went to pay him on 2 weeks later, and he had been killed in an auto accident. So these are the last 2 that will probably exist. This is the underside of that RG500 I was referring to. We have problems with the oil pump gear. We found one now, and we can put it together. Like I said, there are very few of these engines. We've completely gone through it. Obviously it's upside down, so it looks kind of funny, but it's a great engine. Down the line, we'll talk about some of the special features the factory engine had. As I pan through, there's a little bicycle engine I'm playing with. It's Actually, it's an NSU 1931 Moto Sulam. That's the tank. These are a very rare little engine. There's the gas welding set I use to do exhaust systems. And I'll pan over, go to the welding bench, and of course there's the water pump, and gear on the other end drives is the oil pump driving all this. That's for that TZ250. It's the Heliarc gas. Here's the Heliarc welder. It also does arc welding. Have my trusty old Logan lathe, 14-inch lathe, Beverly shear. Here's one of my old engines. It's a 1925. It's a Briggs & Stratton PB. It was used on a rotomold, rotomower, pardon me. A couple little engines sitting up on my rollaway. Twin cylinder you see there sitting there is a drone. They used them for target practice in World War II. That's made by Ryder. There's another one. Looks exactly like it, except it has a gearbox in the front and two counter-rotating propellers. Those propellers are not the proper ones. If you notice, the cylinders look identical, but this one is made by McCulloch. There's a third company, and all three companies made all the same exact parts and pieces so they could be interchangeable, because they put these engines on drones, they flew them off of ships and took target practice for our Navy. Here's a 1919 Cyclo-Tractor. Very interesting little engine. I'll explain it in another video. It's a 1925 Magneto. I charged it some years ago. Hard to see the spark, but you will see it. If I broke the ground electrode off, it would arc right to the shell. It wouldn't care. And I'll show you the machine I built, and I remagnetized these magnets. Other little engines I have, they all have their own little story. It's by trusty old Bridgeport mill. Some of the other stuff in the shop. Here's my magnet machine for magnetizing magnets. I will have a video on that. It's not something you want to fool with. The two large capacitors inside store 600 volts, 1200 amps, except that it fires through a charging coil. This charging coil has 20 pounds worth of copper in it. And when you push the momentary on button and it fires, it's 4,700 amps in a millisecond. So if you have a pacemaker, you're not going to be around this thing when I use it. Trust me. It's the old way they used the shock magnets, because the old material was not as good. These are all videos I'll be putting out and explaining all about these things. Back here at plasma sprayer cutter. There's a wire welder behind that with a spot welding attachment on it. And some of my little mopeds. I have several mopeds. The blue one is German. It's a Zitta Credet. It's 50 cc. Pretty much original. I love things that are original because they're only original once. It's a 2-speed, goes roughly 45 miles an hour. The little red one is folding, very popular in Europe. It says Avanti on it. It's actually an Aqualato made by Bianchi. Bianchi is the oldest bicycle manufacturer in the world. It also is about 50 cc and runs very well. Now we pan over. this little bicycle powered thing. Well, I'll have individual things on all these. It's 1953 BSA wing wheel. This bicycle is rare. It's the late 50s Austro-Daimler. Daimler-Benz was the first car in the world, and then they became got together with Mercedes. And this has a little teeny engine. You can hardly see it between the crank arms. Drives the rear wheel. It's 18cc and it's a diesel. There's no electrics. 18cc is just a little over 1 cubic inch, which is 16.38. This bicycle is a Chinese bicycle, and the engine that's in that is not one of the Chinese kits they sell all over the United States. The Chinese actually copied the Russians. This little engine is a MiG-21. It's Russian. That was the original engine they copied, and this one still has some dark spots you see back in the nooks and crannies, and that's still Cosmoline on it. This engine has maybe 2 miles on it. The bicycle frame you see back there, I have to make a much better stand for it, because I'll show you the engine that's going to be going on it. And it sits upright in front of the front wheel, and it's top heavy, and I don't want the engine to fall over because the fins are all absolutely perfect, and cast iron doesn't like to hit the ground. So I have more engines stored up top. Some of these boxes have engines in them. Later on I'll get out this box, white box, goes way back. It has a 250cc Benelli engine on it. Underneath that, it's driven by electric motor. I have a plexiglass expansion chamber I put on it. That's the exhaust system. And we run it at different speeds, and I feed smoke in it from a bee smoker. And you actually get to see the positive and negative waves reflect inside the cone. Normally people, they hear all about this waves this and waves that and all that, but you're going to actually see some of. Here's some of my bicycles. I've done some extensive bicycle riding in my day. I have over 250,000 miles on bicycles. I've done double centuries, triple centuries. My normal week, I would ride 45 miles of hills every morning before work. 120, 130 mile ride on a Saturday. That was just normal. So chop saw. Another Chinese bicycle. And I will show you some out in the shed.